24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Anytime you want it. Online and on demand. VerKRadio.com. The power of women.
Welcome to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation with Margot Levette. Heard on VerKRadio.com and worldwide on iHeartRadio. Women reinvented to become entrepreneurs, authors, speakers. Their second act is full of courage, full of how-tos, and inspiration. Now, let's get into the show. Here's your host, Margot Levette.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back. A brand new episode of Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation. I am always thrilled every week. And I guess you say, well, does she ever feel that she doesn't have a good show? No. And this week I feel the same way. Let me just get into this intro. Today's guest is a living testimony to faith and perseverance. Her story is a miracle that is still unfolding, and she serves as an example of what you can do with your life. You know, the odds were stacked against her, and she found her way to become one of the most powerful women in entertainment. And this lady did it in a short amount of time. She is the founder and CEO of Loft 22 Entertainment. She's an author. She's the producer of Ink, Paper, Scissors, The Real Housewives of Atlanta. This lady is an inspiration to millions, and I want to welcome producer Princess. Welcome, madam.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I wouldn't have it any other way. Thank you for coming. I know everybody and their brother wants to know about lady who is not an actress or a writer, but the producer of some dynamic work. So let's take it back. I understand that you were born in Jamaica, raised in Canada. My first question is, how did you get to Canada? You know, most people say, okay, the UK, or why Canada, producer Princess?
Well, that's a good question, and probably a question from my parents, but I will say that from what I've learned over the years of being, immigrating to Canada from Jamaica. So I was born in Jamaica, like you said, and a lot of West Indies people from the West Indies, Caribbean, they go to New York, Brooklyn, New York, or they go to Canada. So in our case, we ended up in Canada. And I always say that, I'm fortunate that I grew up in Canada because the culture, my upbringing was so dynamic with my West Indian background and then Canadian. And now I'm fortunate to live in the US. So I've got I got a good taste of everything. I'm fortunate to have all three, but I made it there. Simply my mother got married and there I was. So yeah, that's how I grew up in Canada.
Wow. And Canada is such a beautiful country. And
it is.
Oh my goodness. Then that answers a few questions as far as your chutzpah, and you are resilient. How long were you in Canada? And while you were there, you became a teen mom, correct?
Yeah. So, I guess, that is actually my beginning. So I'm glad we're starting there. That's kind of the reason I am who I am today, is because I strongly believe it. I think that, your destiny and your path is already paid for you. However, I think the footsteps that I took and the journey that I took led me in a more defined and direct method and direct path because I was a young mother. So at the age of 16, I became a mother. And being from a West Indian family early on, I knew that although no matter what happened, and I didn't come from a great deal of means or anything like that. Like I said, being born in Jamaica, that was a third world country. Coming to Canada, both my parents worked full time, and then my mother became a single mother early on. So there was separation in the household and all of that kind of stuff. So I certainly saw my share of struggles, if you want to say, or things that would kind of deter me from pushing forward and becoming young mother was one of them. However, what that meant to me was, well, kid, now you got to grow up and figure it out. And that's exactly what I set out to do early on. So I did become a young mother, but that's the reason why I believe I really had such drive and focus. I just could not, failure was not an option after giving birth to my son, because now he was all I had, and I was all he had. You know, I have a big family and lots of help, but certainly he was my focus and my drive and my reason. So that's really, you know, I credit a lot of it to him and being a teen mom. I made it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I feel the same way. When you have, I think that whenever, whatever stage of life you're in, and you have that child, all of a sudden the dynamics of your life change, and you do grow up. And it's a lot like, failure is not an option. That is not something that you can do. And you did not realize failure at all. I understand that you are quite the businesswoman early on. I mean, you are not a late bloomer on too much of anything. So now, how is it that you got into the beauty industry? Tell us about
Yeah. So like I said, hey, this baby, this child of mine really made me understand that I had to really do something to provide for me, for him, and for a future. And one of the things that I did was when I was carrying my son, and as I gave birth to him and he became a toddler, I went to a school that fortunately I was able to kind of do something what they call a trait. I don't know what they call it in the US, but in Canada they call it a trait. And we had a program in my high school where you can learn the beauty world. So you can learn, you know, makeup and hair and cosmetology and all of that stuff. And I really just fell into aesthetics. I really loved pretty skin and makeup and making, you know, people feel good and women feel beautiful. And so that kind of just, again, was something that I thought, you know, I really like this. And early on, I'm talking 15, 16 years old, I had an interest in beauty. As I had my son, our school provided a program, and I simply said, you know, I'm going to take this program. And I got my aesthetics license when I was about 18 years old. I started working for a beautician or a cosmetologist, and she had aesthetics in her salon. Got my certificate for aesthetics there. And then about a year or two later, I said, you know, I've got all the training I need, and now I'm going to simply open a business. And this was at the age of,
Wow.
I hadn't hit my 21st birthday yet. I was just about 21 years old. I walked into a salon in my hometown, and literally he did, it was our biggest salon that we had in my hometown, which is a really, really small place called Hamilton. That's where I grew up. It's right across the water from Buffalo, and in the other direction from Detroit. So that gives you an idea where we were, about an hour from Buffalo. So basically I just said, you know, I'm going to provide him an opportunity that he doesn't have and that I need. And I simply walked in and said, hi, my name is Princess, and I see that you do hair, but I don't see any beauty, aesthetics, makeup, you know, manicures, pedicures. I can provide that service for you. The only catch was I didn't want to work for him. I knew that. And I knew that early on. I knew that in order to start to pave my own way and have some authority over my own life, I had to ask for what I wanted right away. And so I proposed to him what they now call salon suites. I proposed to him this idea where, hey, I'll kind of rent out your back room, and I'll put my name and my presence in the back, and everybody who comes in and needs that service, they can come right back to me, and, you know, and kind of build my clientele. And that's exactly what I did. He kind of reluctantly looked at me like, you know, this little, and I was 21, but I looked 16. So he looked at me like, who is this kid? But okay. And, you know, that was it. A week later, I moved in. I did aesthetics out of that spot for about 5 years and just grew my business. And then, you know, took a turn in terms of life and career. And we'll talk about that next. But yeah, that's where it all started. My entrepreneurship drive and vision started early on from that one experience of seeing a need and trying to fill it.
Oh, wow. And that principle still rings. Everybody says, look around you. You know, the business, your next business is right in front of you.
It's right in front of you. Yes.
Oh my goodness, I'm getting goosebumps. Just how I tell you, you are a lady with much chutzpah, grit, and your vision. You know how many people would have just said, "Oh well," and just would have stayed in a salon or something like that, and just would have. They never would have really had the guts to branch out on their own. I have a feeling, Princess, that producer Princess, that just really paved the way for what was coming up down the road here for you.
Yeah.
You told us earlier that you didn't look for Hollywood. Hollywood found you.
Uh-uh.
Now, let me just ask you this, because I'm looking at your picture. Your skin is beautiful. Your
Thank
makeup
you.
is just, as they say, banging. So, is it your presentation that caused Hollywood to come a knocking, or how did that door open?
Yeah, okay, let's get into that. Well, so I had moved to Atlanta from Canada. I had been here about 6 months or so, maybe a year, going on a year. And when I got to Atlanta, so when I left the beauty industry, I became a technical underwriter. So I
Mm.
kind of took a turn in my whole life. I moved to Toronto and I said, I love the beauty industry, but what else is there for me? And I think, like so many women, it was kind of trying to find what else I wanted to do, redefine myself, and figure out really what I wanted to become and who I wanted to see myself as. And I thought, well, should I try out this world? So I ended up doing that, moving to Toronto. And right around that time, I met my husband and moved to Atlanta. So shortly after the being a technical underwriter, moved to Atlanta, and I started to just kind of look around, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. But one thing my husband said to me early on was, well, listen, now I would like you to do what you want to do, not what you have to do.
Oh,
And
wow.
for me, right, and I knew I had his support right from the very beginning of anything I wanted to do. I think I started to look around, and I'll just be honest, my husband comes from an environment, or in meeting him, I got put into an environment where all of his friends are doctors, lawyers, professional athletes. And what stood out to me was I saw a lot of women who were just living their lives. And listen, anybody, however you choose to live is your choosing. But what I saw was a lot of, drink champagne on the patio and go for
Hmm.
brunch and shopping. And listen, that's great. We all want to, kick back and sit
Yeah.
by the pool all day. However, However, that was not for me. That
Yes.
was not for Princess. And I
Uh,
said, I wasn't, and again, not knocking anybody's lifestyle. I love it. I love seeing women be able to just do what they want to do. It just, for me, I've always done something and been passionate about something. And I said, well, this is an opportunity for me to kind of figure out where I wanted to be. I say all that to say that's really how my environment we talked about earlier was the reason why this show happened. So early on, I had a friend of mine who was around me a lot, and she was a photographer, and I would go on set with her a lot, and she would like take photographs of video sets and that kind of thing. So she was from Canada as well, so she would stay with me. I would go with her. And I was on a music video set. It was actually a Snoop Dogg video set, I'll never forget. And I started watching these women, rally for position in front of the camera, and
mm,
kind of, yeah, it was very, very interesting to me. Now I will say I'm from Toronto, which is, and was, grew up in Toronto, or was in Toronto for a lot of times, and I saw the video modeling world, but I was never really exposed to it. Toronto is a very big hub for video models, but I really didn't get a chance to really see that side of it. So fast forward, I write this idea down on a napkin. The idea was called Dime Piece, and it was a show really about video models. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just said, this is an idea that could be, quote, on television. Now I have to put that in quotes because I had no idea what
uh-huh.
that meant for me. I did not have a television background. I did not even pick up a book to read about what is television production.
Oh my.
I had not Googled it. When I promised, it led me to this napkin. I wrote on a napkin, and that was my very first treatment.
Mm.
was written on a napkin, and I had no idea what I was doing, just writing down what the girls look like, what the house looked like, what could be, what the episode, I promise you. And that's what I did. That little napkin and that little idea led me to start having conversations with people about, hey, I want to get this in front of somebody because I think I have a really great show idea. And, of course, people were looking at me like, well, because they know the business, but I don't. And I'm like, well, yeah, I think that I need to meet somebody. And I started doing a little more research and said, oh, okay, well, I need to put this in place and I need to have my ducks in order. And I did my own, my Google teacher became my best friend. And I figured out some little pieces of the puzzle. Fast forward, ended up speaking to a friend of mine who led me to a producer, an executive actually, or a buyer, as I became familiar with later. I did not know who he was. I did not know how powerful he was. All I said was, yes, I'd love to meet with him. I'd love to speak to him. And fast forward, I ended up in LA, sitting in his office. We had 2 meetings. The first one, we just spoke and talked about this great idea that I had, and didn't know where that would lead. It led me to his office in LA from Atlanta. And in that meeting, the idea of Real Housewives of Atlanta was born because we started to talk about, it was almost like we had this conversation about Don Peace, and then very quickly in that conversation, it was like, what else is going on in Atlanta? And they started talking about this other place called Ladera Heights that had a lot of, Ladera Heights?
Yes.
Is that what it's called?
Yes.
It was a predominantly wealthy African-American neighborhood in LA. And I said, well, I don't know about that, but what I do know about is Atlanta.
Yes.
And I actually did not know a lot about Atlanta. Don't tell anybody. But when I said, faith is going to lead me through this. And it came out my mouth, and he said, oh, okay. And I said, well, there are women who, wear fur to the game, pop their neck, are sassy. And I know a lot of these women. Now, I certainly knew of or knew, was around these women. But now I said it, and he said, oh, okay. I said, we need to do a show in Atlanta. And I, kept going on and said about these women that I was exposed to. And he looked at me like I was crazy. He just said, okay. And I said, well, give me 3 weeks. My second interview was Nene Leakes, my second interview. And I literally walked in, I got goosebumps, and I said, I don't know how, I literally said in my mind, I got a show. I mean, almost the minute she opened the door, and her energy and the fact that she was so open. And I will back up and say this, and I know I'm talking a lot. I'm going to stop in a second, but I'll say this very important point about that. When I started this process of looking for these women, I, again, didn't know much about television, but was learning. And I had a cameraman that was also my editor, was also my lighting, was also my audio. I just made it happen. And he came around with me, and I took my notepad, and Miss Nene Leakes opened her door. We talked, and I asked who were her friends. And literally the rest is history. 11 seasons later. That's how it happened. Yeah. I mean, that's it. Yeah.
Wow.
That's how Hollywood found me.
That is a whirlwind. Started with a napkin. Now, there's something, when you wrote that on your napkin, there must have been synergy and energy that just let you know, every fiber of your being had to know and trust. This has to be the next step. I have support from my husband. We're going to do this. This is what I'm doing. And I bet, were you just brimming over with excitement? Like, this is the real deal. I'm doing this.
You know what? What I knew was, I felt like, because I will be honest, you asked me the question about people asking, was it in front of the camera? I had people say to me, oh, you should do some, acting or modeling or whatever it is that people would say to me early on when I got here. There's a lot of things happening here. And I kind of always knew where I wanted to fit in at, especially at that moment. And I said, I just have these ideas, and I know that something's going to happen with something that I'm thinking. And that opportunity or that environment, me sitting in a room with these women, is the reason why I kind of said, I think I can show the side of this industry that people would be interested in seeing. And that's how it really happened. I just felt like that's what I could do. I could tell the stories that people would be interested in watching. And that's how Housewives happened. I went out, interviewed, found out what the stories were of each woman, each and every woman, and then worked on the show season 1 and 2 to produce those stories with the showrunner. So I knew that's where I needed to be. And I knew it. I just knew that I could produce and tell a good story. And that's just really where I stuck. Yeah, just stuck right there.
You found it once again. You found a need and you filled it. Here
Absolutely.
you are. Oh my goodness! I hear the passion and just the story itself. It's no wonder that after the Real Housewives of Atlanta, you would go on to create and produce another show. I'm not surprised about that. And after that, then you go ahead and you get Loft 22. And I don't want to skip forward and downplay anything in between that. But all of this has brought you to a book. And I really want you to tell us about Sell It from concept to reality. Because you know what, Producer Princess, I have a feeling that it's really going to be groundbreaking for the next generation or those who are wondering, how do I do what Producer Princess did? How do I actually position myself to be seen, to give myself permission to do this big idea that's around in my heart and in my soul and in my spirit? Am I coining your book correctly? That's what it's all about?
Well, yeah. And actually, the reason why it's actually more of a planner slash journal. So it's really not quite a book, but it certainly serves a purpose for whoever buys the planner. They kind of already know what they're going to be doing with it and how they're going to utilize it. The questions that I got most during my time in development. So right after Housewives, I really fell into a lot of development. So networks, production companies, producers would hire me to work on what they had, make it better, find talent, develop a story, develop an idea. And I did that really, really successfully for years. And then as I kind of got the itch to kind of sell another show, so to speak, I got back into, really developing things for myself. And that's where Ink, Paper, Scissors came, and a couple of other projects that I worked on. I sold about 15 pilots in total over my career, in different stages, from, all the way from the ground up to jumping on someone else's project. I say all that to say the questions I got the most was, how did you do it? What are the steps? How can I, take these ideas in my brain and kind of put them down somewhere? And that's how the journal came to be. A friend of mine, Maya Sly, who is the one who kind of started coining these planners or journals, she started out doing them for quite a few other successful people, different genres, from hairstylists to money makers to real estate investments, and approached me. I said, I really want to do this because this information is not out there. So I simply set out to write a 12-week kind of guide. So everything from writing your treatment, using your resources, kind of tapping into all of the things. What is a character sheet? And I kind of make you do the work. So I position it from all the way from week 1 to week 12. I give you what the task is. You simply have to go in, and it's an empty journal. It's about 210 pages or so, a hardcover book. So people just kind of pick it up and go. They journal along. They kind of map out their steps. And when they get to the end, they kind of look for what's next. So yeah, that's kind of really in a nutshell the reason why I decided to put that out and publish it. And it's been doing really well. It actually sold out the very first go around. It sold out in about a month or so, which I was really excited about. And now we've restocked it and we've got more. Yeah.
That is so cool. Well, as you spoke of it, the first thing I thought of is you actually making a person walk out what they would put down on their napkin. Walk it out, work it out.
Yep. Exactly. I'm telling them, here's your napkin. It's just in a little nicer format, but write it down and kind of keep it with you and do the next step. So it's been a great tool for people so far. Yeah.
Well, you are such a giver. You have a foundation. You always speak to young adults, the young women that watch you. As we said earlier, you are an inspiration to millions.
Thank
You
you.
really could have, once you got to the States, there were so many career choices that could have come, things that you could have done, so many different industries you could have gone into, but you went into the one where you really did the most good. And I'm just kind of wondering, Loft 22 Entertainment, what are you working on these days? Are you at liberty to give any information or anything that you want us to know?
Sure, yeah. I've always, like I said, I've always been Loft 22 and had Loft 22 and helped other people with their own projects. But lately we've been branching out and kind of coming back to my roots, which is developing things for myself and for my own company. We have a show that we're working on now. And it's funny because I'm kind of at the cusp of being able to talk about some of the things and not being able to talk about them. But what I will say is one of the shows is we are looking for talented people. I'll just kind of leave it at that. And
Mhm.
people, if people visit my Instagram, which is my main platform at this time, and kind of keep their eyes open, I'm gonna make two really big announcements. Both of them are show announcements, and one is a documentary, which is new to me. I've never done scripted, so this is going to be interesting. But three projects, but two of them will be announcing within the next little while. And then also this, I'm always doing seminars and workshops and things that people can sign up to kind of come and meet me and talk to me and see. So those are all on my Instagram, Producer Princess. But a couple of things, I wish I could talk about them today, but until we kind of sign away,
Yeah.
I won't. But definitely some exciting projects.
Well, I'm not surprised, and I don't want to pry something out
No.
of you prematurely, but I know that you are a lady that is. Oh, you are a socialite. You are a fashion trailblazer, but you are a woman that always has something cooking on the stove. I already know
Yeah.
that about you. So
Yes, ma'am.
there's just one final question, and it's something
Sure.
that's as soon as I had a chance to speak with you, I wanted to ask this. We always hear people talk about what they know. What
Hmm.
is it, Producer Princess, that you know, that you know, that you know?
Ooh. I know that you must follow your dreams. And I say that a lot of people say, oh, follow your dreams, follow your dreams, follow your dreams. But what I know is, had I not followed my own dream, my own heart, my own destiny, I wouldn't be here. If I had sat back and said, that idea is surmountable. It's just so big. How dare I think I can be a television producer? How dare I? I don't know anything and I'm not qualified and I don't have a degree in television broadcast. If I had told myself all of that and not followed my dream, my true dream and passion, followed my heart, I wouldn't be here today. So what I know is that you've got to listen to that inner voice. You just have to. I used to literally sit in my car and just the thoughts that would flood in, I couldn't control, and I kept thinking, this is really going to happen. This is going to happen. And had I not followed it, it would never have happened. It just
That's
wouldn't.
that's powerful. That is powerful. I hope everybody heard that. Make note. It's powerful. Don't, oh my goodness. Producer Princess, you have left me speechless because I know what you're saying is so true, and the world needs to hear that. I am considerate of your time. You have fed us greatly. This conversation with Princess Ann Banton-Lofters, who is Producer Princess. I appreciate your time. Let me tell everybody to get their copy of Sell It from Concept to Reality. And Producer Princess, where can people reach you? Do they best to Google you? You said find you on Instagram.
Yeah, that's my main platform. Most people find me there. Producer Princess is my handle. My email is there. My link is there. People DM me. There's many ways. My planner is available on my website, which is a link right from my Instagram page. You can find
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Spoken as a true professional that she is, very organized. I thank you for this time, and audience, I thank you. You know, as I always say, you have to listen more than one time because this is a dynamic lady who has really given us lessons from the heart and from her own experience. So take it to heart, your own self. Do not sleep on your dreams and be a doer. I'm Margot Levette. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back next week with a brand new episode. In the meantime, I invite you to go over to my website, Her Business, Her Voice. My book is over there, and I am also teaching people how to create and launch their podcast. There's so many women who have stories, and it's time that we get our podcast together. It's time that we get our stories out there, okay? So I'll be back next week. In the meantime, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation with Margot Levette. Since you like what you heard, go over to herbusinesshervoice.com to get a copy of her book. Subscribe to the show and receive updates, free products, and offers. Be sure to let family, friends, and colleagues know about the show. Margot returns next week with a brand new dialogue on Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation.
HurricaneRadio.com, certified #1 digital talk radio station in the world. The power of women.